Hey guys, it's Shama here for another issue of Retailing Weekly. I'm super excited. I just got back from Paris about 2 nights ago, and it's been really awesome. The jet lag hasn't been that bad, which is amazing. I'm super excited about that. And I'm super, super happy to be able to report back lots of exciting things that are happening in the world of retail. So we are going to have a really fun and exciting Retailing Weekly. As always, guys, this is not the time where we talk about strategy so much, but as much as like what is happening in the market, right? What is happening in the space of retail? Hey guys. So let's break it down. So many exciting things, so many things happening in retail. And this is our time to really get to break it down. So the first thing, oh my gosh, in the last 2 years, it has been so crazy the amount of political activation that a lot of brands have started to speak up and stand for. And I think it's super valuable because when we take a look at what brands are doing strategically, right? Companies like Gucci that just donated $500,000 to the anti-gun march to be able to fight for people to be banning guns and more strict gun legislation are really companies out there that are saying, hey, this is really important and it's super valuable that we do not just stay quiet during moments of, let's say, international crisis or during moments where we have an opportunity to show our brand values and to show what it is that we stand for. Now, during the Women's March last year, you also saw, and this year, you saw a ton of brands that were starting to take a stand for things that they believed in politically. And this tends to be a really big issue for some startups and some small brands that are wondering, when do I go political? And even larger brands have this conversation. When do I say what it is that I stand for, and how do I convey that message without alienating people who are potentially existing or future customers? Now, that is a very important question to ask yourself. And I think the answer to that is you cannot avoid not having a perspective and not having a stand. You can certainly dance around things, right? You don't necessarily have to say things that are, you don't necessarily have to do things in such an aggressive way. There's a way for being able to take a stand for something politically and be able to exemplify that and stand for that. And part of that might be coming out with, what we call femme advertising, right? If you're getting on board with some of the Women's March and Me Too movements and being able to say, hey, we stand with women or we are a collective. The other opportunity is to be able to take a stand for things that are environmental and that things that are political. So again, not every brand has to do that, but consumers are really looking for transparency and authenticity. So the fact that Gucci invested and donated rather $500,000 is super valuable and very, very important for the future of the brand, especially since they also recently banned doing furs in their collections. And then they also, outside of banning fur, they've also been taking a strategic step towards obviously revitalizing the brand, right? So this is them really niching themselves in with the current, right? In with the public. Now, what's fascinating is to see the rise of the other luxury brands that are like, holy bananas, we've got to get in the mix, right? We've got to be able to also become current and become relevant. So guys, when I was in Paris, I went to see the Dior eyewear pop-up shop, store rather, and this was something that we reported on about a week ago about how they were launching their first ever standalone sunglass and eyewear storefront. Now, what was fascinating about that when I went to visit it is that it was really cute. It was really kind of fun and interactive. They had all these exclusives, but they also did a really interesting feature, which is they now can make your lenses with the frames in the shop in about 4 hours. Now, why is that amazing? It's amazing because now all of a sudden, if you've wanted to buy a pair of Dior glasses, you can go there and have them made in store. Okay, let's take it a step further. That is super cool because now you no longer have to go to your, eye doctor, get them filled, and buy your glasses somewhere else, right? This is super amazing. And they're also integrating that with sunglasses. Lastly, they're providing kind of this clincher, right? They want to make sure that you are, embedded into their culture and their lifestyle. So did I buy something? Yes. And was it amazing? Yes. Did they give us champagne and, chocolates and, all of that? Yes. Was it an amazing brand experience? Yes, yes, yes. So when it comes to these new kinds of ways of getting in front of your customer, providing great customer experience, when you are doing pop-up shops or you're doing a brick and mortar retail store, is all about that experience. Now, Business of Fashion just recently talked about how Dior is starting to really come back and they're starting to really revitalize the brand, right? They're starting to really revitalize the culture. Balenciaga is doing the same thing. And we're starting to see a lot of big heritage brands really trying to capture and become new into this market. In fact, I was just reading about, I believe it was Aquazara, that is now also starting to implement an entire rebrand and an entire new direction of the business. They're now going to be introducing men's, they're going to be introducing other types of accessory products, fragrances. They're opening up 9 new retail locations. And so when we start to say like what's happening in retail, it is booming, right? Consumers are looking for this kind of high traction, really fun, really engaged, lots of customer touch points. And we are becoming more involved in the lifestyle business now more than ever, right? It is insane. However, guys, and this is really funny, these heritage brands, they're not carrying through with their classic styles. When I walked into the Gucci store in duty free, all the styles that they were showing were all of the current trendy pieces, right? With these days, as far as Gucci's strategy is concerned, they are producing so many new hot ticket products. They're getting rid of their discounts and they're making sure all of it is really high, fast turnover. Now, the only issue is that there is an entire class of people who loved these brands because of their classic nature. They love them because of their timelessness. They love them because of the epitomizing of, classic amazing pieces that were made well, that they could have forever, that became hand-me-downs. So what we're seeing here, and I think this is valuable, is as a brand, right, you have to ask yourself, do I want to be this classic brand that I can continue to sell season after season, where I'm known for these particular styles and this heritage? Or do I want to kind of play the game in this more high, fast turnover business, right? Do I want to keep up with the Joneses, or do I want to play my own game? Now, I am concerned because obviously all fashion has trends, right? All of a sudden these days we're seeing logos everywhere, it's like Gucci, Balenciaga is coming out with it. However, right, when is that trend going to end, and how are these brands going to be able to continue that? Because everything has a lifespan, right? And that is very important to understand. Okay. Next on my list is an article that came out, I believe it was on Women's Wear Daily, talking about revamping the trade show market. Now, those of you guys who know, I've been hitting up the trade show market like crazy this season. It's been super, super important. And the reason why is because I really want to see what brands are doing, what retailers are looking at, and how everything is coming together. So I was in New York for New York Fashion Week, Paris for Market, Vegas for Market. And let me tell you, these markets are becoming big places for talks. They are becoming big places to educate, to learn. And they're starting to find ways of diversifying and adding a little bit more context. So Coterie, which happens at the Javits Center in New York, they are going to be introducing a whole new beauty category. And what's so interesting about this is they are tapping into influencers, they're tapping into celebrity makeup artists, and they want to introduce and get on the bandwagon of this beauty craze. Now, why is that interesting? Well, when you start to diversify and have multiple different categories that you're showing at a trade show, it makes it a lot easier for buyers to come and stay longer. It makes them easier to be able to find a lot of different kinds of product. So guys, I would say if you're interested in doing a trade show, if you are a brand on that side, really take a look and see who are the brands that are showing, and are there some trade shows that are starting to diversify? Because I do think that that is going to be a major player as far as where things are headed in the trade show market. Now, the other thing that's interesting on the retail side is this makes trade shows become so much more desirable, right? It makes it so that you're not worried about running between the different shows, but that you can actually go to a particular trade show and start to satisfy and fill multiple categories. That's super cool, right? That is not something that's happening all the time. Okay, so next on my list of awesome news and stuff to cover, Business of Fashion recently announced that Glossier hired someone from the creative director role for that role from Condé Nast, Marie Suter. Now, what's so interesting about this hire, I think strategically for a startup, is to really ask yourself, when is it that I need to invest in hiring a head honcho? When is it that I need to be able to get someone to fill kind of these bigger roles? And what's fascinating is that you might find that a lot of startups do not fill those roles until they are quite a bit more successful, right? Companies like Glossier are really on the forefront of hiring some of these high profile hires for being such a small business and for growing so rapidly, right? Other companies wait until they've expanded quite a bit before they start to fill some of these higher profile roles. And they also, guys, and this is something interesting to note, they will start to fill those roles when they're starting to think about IPO, right? So an IPO is an initial public offering, and what that means is they want to build up their core executive team so it is invest worthy. Now, this is a question that I get from a lot of different companies that are big, small, ones that are wondering, when do I start to get investment? When can I start to, look for outside IPO? Like, when do I break that? And really what it comes down to is not always just your profitability, right? Glossier, while their revenues are really high, they're not a profitable business, but yet their valuation is so high, right? And that's because they're working on a number of other different metrics. However, when it comes to thinking about who those key hires are that are really going to make your team investable, you start to look at outside people who have proven track records of experience. You start to look at who is on the executive management team, and really how does this business kind of propel itself forward if it wasn't just the founder, right? Because usually, guys, founders can only take a business so far, right? After that, it really depends on the executive team that you're hiring for. Okay. Other fun and interesting pieces of news that really got my mind turning this morning. One of them had to do with the European Union proposing retaliatory tariffs against U.S. clothing and cosmetic companies. And I thought this was really interesting because if you guys are keeping up with politics, which I certainly wasn't while I was in Paris, but definitely am getting back onto the troop of things now. But what's interesting here is when we think about high tariffs, right? What does that mean? Well, that really means that we are thinking about what those tariffs look like from the standpoint of taxation when U.S. brands are exporting into other countries. So companies like Levi's would be hit really hard with this, right? Of course, they're exporting on volume, right? Any of you guys who have businesses here domestically in the U.S. and are interested in exporting to the EU would then be slapped with some higher tariffs and taxes, depending on what that is. Now, you might ask yourself, well, why does that matter? Well, it matters because it then increases the cost price of your product to the retailer in that particular market and segment. And so sometimes in fashion, guys, we overlook the biggest ways in which politics and which trade really impact the way that we do business. A lot of times small to medium-sized companies are not getting competitive quotes from freight forwarders. They're not finding out competitively, customs and duties, if their paperwork should be filled out a little bit better. How can they take advantage of what the different rules and logistics are for them? And so things like this really throw a wrench to a lot of small to medium-sized companies who are interested in really rapidly growing their business on a global scale, especially targeting retailers that are in the European Union. So let's stay tuned. We'll see how this kind of pans out. But once again, a great opportunity to say what's happening as far as politics in the US country and how is that going to impact the way that we do business in a more globalized space. Now, just to chime in here, while I was visiting Paris market, I saw a ton of amazing brands. I went to a variety of multi-line showrooms. We were there doing a buy for a store that we're opening in the Middle East, in Bahrain. Now, what's really fascinating about this is that there are lots of different stores that are popping up in Riyadh, in Dubai, in the UAE. It's like there's so many things that are happening in the Middle East. There's obviously a Saks out there. There's a Harvey Nichols. It is booming. And what's really fascinating is that a lot of these brands that we were visiting have already been thinking very much in a global context, meaning they're very much thinking about how does my product translate to the Middle Eastern market? How does my product translate to, the market in the southern hemisphere when it's colder in the northern hemisphere. And so what we saw a lot of this season were a lot of layerable knits. We saw a lot of products that were translating to almost like just transitional pieces, right? Pieces you could layer up, layer down. And then the companies that we saw that really went big into outerwear, that really went big into heavy knits, those were brands that were really focused on those collections. Those were brands that were really known for having those pieces, right? Outerwear companies, right? Companies that were really focused on specific chunky knit sweaters, obviously with the understanding that their product may not be right, for all the markets. So we're seeing a huge kind of shift into more transitional collections, as well as more item-driven brands that are really focusing on the swim market, right? And they're focusing really on the outerwear market. And I thought that was genius, and it's really valuable. So when we're thinking about tariffs and taxes as we're selling globally, I think it's also a great question to ask yourself, how am I preparing my business to be perceived by the global market? Am I able to actually create a system of products and an offering that doesn't just make me competitive or want to be competitive within the US market, but how do I compete globally? And sometimes what you might find, guys, is that the global markets sometimes are more receptive and easier to accept your product and sell through and get volume than being competitive in the US market. So think about that a little bit more as you start to build and grow and think about global distribution. Okay. One or two final things before we sign off. One article that came up in Adweek that was really fascinating was about augmented reality and how a lot of brands are incorporating that. And in our recent talk at Magic, I went over a lot of different new types of augmented reality that brands are taking on. And I think this is something for you guys to really keep your eye out for. So companies like Lowe's and other different kinds of companies are launching with more of these types of opportunities for you to be able to take your phone and see a product and put that product kind of in your space and start to see what it would look like in action, right? See what it would actually look like if you had it in your home. Now, obviously, there are a whole bunch of logistics and a whole bunch of things that you need to take into consideration, but the really most valuable piece of this is that it really increases the probability of being able to close the sale. Right? And this is something, this type of technology is really going to start to scale up as we start to see more larger retailers take this on, right? This is going to be something that we can start to implement as smaller businesses. So one thing I would say, guys, if you fall into that small to medium-sized enterprise company, I would definitely start to take a look online at companies like Crunchbase or AngelList, so you can really start to see who out there is starting to develop these technologies and possibly even see if it's possible to do some kind of collaboration with them and integrate and use their technology as they're looking to beta test and as you are looking to bring newness and new possibilities to your online selling platforms. Because even though you may not be able to invest into a high scale augmented reality platform, it is still very much possible for you to take a step back and say, let's partner up with these guys, let's see how this works, and let's start to experiment. So I think that's really, really exciting. Okay, last amazing thing. So I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Glam Squad. Glam Squad is an app, a mobile app that connects you to stylists in about, I think it's 3 major markets right now. I wanna say it is Los Angeles, New York City, and Miami, I think, are the major markets that Glam Squad covers. Now, Glam Squad is amazing. It's basically a hairstylist and a makeup artist and a nail technician on demand. And what I think is fascinating about what they're doing is they are actually allowing it so that you can have quality hair care professionals come into your home and they will style your hair for you. They don't do cuts or anything like that. However, this latest piece of news is tapping into London, Paris, and Dubai markets, and it's the launch of a company called, it's a hybrid of Uber and BGX. And basically, BGX is a marketplace for professional, hairstylists and salon and luxury salons to be able to connect with consumers. And what's amazing is that unlike, what Glam Squad does, what Glam Squad does is any stylist who's a part of their network comes to you. But what this new collaboration between Uber and BGX is doing is it basically is partnering up with a lot of different higher end salons. So it's giving a more luxury feel. It's giving something that is a little bit more tangible, right? You want to be serviced by the Balmain hair care professionals, right? You want to be able to have that higher end luxury feel. So it's actually connecting one-to-one these designer hair salons with the customer, and then Uber is then providing kind of the conduit between the two. So of course this is launching in Paris, Dubai, London, but this is an amazing opportunity, guys, for you to keep an eye out on how Uber is starting to do a lot more branded collaborations, and they're starting to expand what their scope of work is, right? Not only have they been doing things with free rides and doing things with local cities and partnering up for events and things like that, but now they're fully stacking, going into a totally different kind of partnership. Again, an opportunity for you to ask yourself, how can I as a brand really think a little bit more outside of the box here, right? Sometimes we look at what we're doing and it's like, all right, I create this collection, I do this, I'm so consumed with the shows, with the selling, with the orders, with production, the new seasons. But we really fail to stop and ask ourselves, well, what are we doing to innovate here? What are we actually doing in order to get in front of our customer in a totally unique and different way? And that is exactly what Uber is doing now. So again, just something to keep your eye on, and something to obviously be thinking about as you start to close up Q1, moving into Q2. Obviously, lots of fun summer collaborations are going to come up this summer. Very, very excited about that. All right, guys. That is it from Retailing Weekly. If you guys do not subscribe to our blog, please do. We're going to have some great recaps on Paris Fashion Week. Very, very excited about that. And then, as of course, this video will be published on YouTube. So you can always come and find us there and see all of our other how-tos and amazing content. All right, guys, talk to you later. Bye.